Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Bruchim Aboyim, welcome everybody. This week is Parshas Ekev, and in Parshas Ekev we have a very important pasuk. V'chalta v's'ota u'beirachta es Hashem Elokecha al ha'aretz ha'tova asher nosan lach, and you shall eat and you shall be satisfied, and ye shall bless the Lord thy God for the good land that he hath given unto thee. And from there we derive the mitzvah of the Torah of Birkat Hamazon, which is one of only two of the many brachos that we say, 100 brachos a day, which is also linked to this week's parsha. We mentioned Parshas Hayira, which says Moaz Shem Elokecha Shoel Mimach Al Tikra Mala Meir. Chazal say that David HaMelech, King David, instituted the recitation of 100 daily benedictions. Most of those liturgically are midirabanan; they're of rabbinical origin. However, the obligation to recite Birkas Hamazon is a biblical obligation, although there are times when it can also be a rabbinical obligation if one is not truly satisfied. Nonetheless, the rabbis encouraged us and commanded us, and we're obligated rabbinically to recite Birkas Hamazon if we eat a certain amount of bread. And the other bracha that's Doraisa, according to most opinions, is Birkas HaTorah, because it says in Parshas Hazinu, Ki Shema Hashem Ekra B'Godel Elokeinu. But we'll put that aside for now. This is our focus, this week's parsha. We can talk about Parshas Hazinu when we get to Parshas Hazinu. This week is Parshas Ekev, and we have this very special mitzvah of Birkas Hamazon, of we call in Yiddish benchen, which means blessing. It's often called in English the grace after meals, and it's a major difference between a Jewish approach and the popular Christian approach to the recitation of grace, because in a Jewish tradition we thank God both before the meal and after the meal, whereas as far as I know, depending on maybe some of the Eastern Orthodox denominations, I'm not sure, might have a prayer before and after a meal, but in our tradition we definitely do. And but most Christians probably, as far as I know, if they say grace before they eat, they don't say it after they eat. And our sages teach that actually, first of all, the scripture tells us that you should eat and be satisfied and bless the Lord your God. And so that is a requirement from the Torah. It's in Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 10. So why do we recite a blessing before we eat? And so the answer is that it's common sense. It's a svara. It's obvious that when one is hungry and one is dependent on God, one has to take the time to thank God for the food. This is what our sages answer in the Talmud. After one eats, that's when we have to be commanded. Meaning, common sense would say that we have to thank God before we eat. And so that's what, for the most part, if someone's from other religions and they're observant of those religions and have these pious devotions, they will, at least when they're sitting down with their family for a meal, or at least, on a special occasion, they'll recite grace before the meal. I remember when I was a kid, even though my mother is Jewish, and my father, my late father, he was Catholic, and even though we didn't have, really like a Catholic type of upbringing, and certainly Judaism, I would say, was stronger in our household than Christianity, than Catholicism was. Growing up, I remember, Pesach. We would do both. We would do Christmas and Easter. We do Pesach and Christmas and Hanukkah, and we do Easter and Pesach, whatever. But Pesach, we ate only kosher Pesach. So if I went to my Italian grandma's house and she had Easter eggs, even though there was nothing chametz really in the Easter eggs, we couldn't eat even the Easter eggs because it was Pesach. Pesach we held very strongly. And Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, I remember Simchas Torah, I remember Purim. Before I was frum, I remember these Yomim Tovim, that was part of our life. But we had a Christmas tree. But even though I went to shul with my Zayda Alav Shalom for Yontiv and even for Shabbos sometimes and so forth, and I remembered it and it was nice. I remember you have cake and orange soda and things, and I didn't really go to church. I remember when my sisters who were a few years younger. I had one sister less than a year younger than me. And then two sisters who were closer to 5 years, 6 years younger, 7 years younger, something like that. And so then I was already cognizant of what was going on, and I remember going to church when they were baptized, as was I and my other sister. But that, of course, I don't remember, and I have seen pictures from my bris, but and all of us kids, we were baptized in the Catholic Church, and I had my bris in the shul, and my sisters got Jewish names. My Zayda got an Aliyah, something, and that was Zoy's Gevein. That's how we did it. But one thing I remember is that a certain part of our lives wasn't a regular occasion. We did this thing where we would all hold hands as family and we'd say some kind of a prayer. I'll tell you the truth, as a young child, I was really more of an atheist or agnostic, and I only came to faith later in life. Later in life, I was 14 years old when I really got into Yiddishkeit. I went to yeshiva when I was 14. Started like Hebrew school when I was 10. The Reform Hebrew school. I think maybe I was 8 or 9 in the Reform Hebrew school. Then we moved upstate. Anyway, even in the Reform, I knew about brachas before davening, before eating. We knew about hamaitzi and Brei Priates and things like that. We were taught those things. But anyway, I didn't really know about benching after. And even my Bab and Zayda were from that really wasn't my Zayda. He would make a Brei Priagafa and a Maitzi. He wasn't, the benching wasn't, for some reason, I don't mean to say Lashon Hara, but just, I don't know why, that wasn't part of, I guess, of his upbringing, or whatever it was. And then when I became frum, I learned about benching, and the chiyuv to bench, and so I got into that, So anyway, we so we have this mitzvah, and the thing that Chazal say is that it has to be a commandment to bench, because once you're already satisfied, it's very easy to forget to serve God. And I remember Rabbi Olbaum Zolgazunzain is a big Rav of Pesach, Mamash Agadol B'Yisrael, the Himnaruv in Queens. I used to daven there when I was in yeshiva, and Himnaruv Zolgazunzain, he mentioned, I forgot who he was quoting from, and he said that, from one of the Bali Musar, he said, why is it that people have more kavanah in davening than they do by benching? And he said, halavai, we should have kavanah by davening. Rabbi Olbaum said, but he said that there's a phenomenon that it's very hard to concentrate by benching. And he said that because once you've already eaten, it's very easy to forget. Once you're already satisfied, you're full, it's very easy to forget who gave you the food, and that's why it's so important to do so. That's why that's the most important time to focus on God and to thank God for the food that He gave us. And we so this is a shot with the food, with the benching. You should eat and be satisfied, and then you bless the Lord your God. Meaning everybody knows that you have to thank God before you eat. The whole world knows that. But after you eat, that's something that's from the wisdom of the Torah, that's uniquely Jewish. And maybe others might have copied it, but it's not as... I don't remember. Like I said, I remember as a kid, we'd hold hands and say something. It was never about Yoshka anything. Maybe my father would cross himself or something, I don't know. But it was a general thing. I don't even know if we said God. If it was, I don't remember. I was a little kid, and I just always thought it was weird, And then, when I got older, I became frum, I appreciate these things, and I appreciate the other religions too, even though I disagree with them. And I know people are offended by that, but it's emes. I have to tell the truth. Anyway, but this is there is something special about Judaism. And this is one of the examples, and many, many examples in our apologetics are so much superior to any other religion's apologetics, and then just plain Pashut Yiddishkeit in a simple way. It has a tremendous beauty to it that is far superior to any other religion. But nonetheless, it's not everything works for everybody else, and we shouldn't be fighting and calling everybody else monkeys and this and that, meaning we look at the more extremist fundamentalist Muslims, and they're like, oh, they say that the Jews are pigs and monkeys and this and that, and then you go and say the same thing about Muslims and Christians. So are you any better if that's what you do? And if you're okay doing that, so then what's wrong with the Muslims doing that? They believe it for their thing, and you believe it for your thing. It's one or the other. Anyway. And so that's why I personally I respect everybody, even the most extreme. You want to say the whatever Westboro Baptist Church, I think they're crazy, but I still respect them. I think they're wrong, but I still respect them. And some things they're right, and some things they may be more right than the Reformed Jews are. But it is what it is. But I remember Jay Ibsen. I was very proud of him. He had a bullhorn when the Westboro Baptist Church, which I remember my friend who was a Baptist minister who was a docent for Jay Ibsen in his Holocaust Museum, he said that they're not Baptists, they have nothing to do with us. I said, all right. I didn't think they were. I didn't think you had anything to do with them or they had anything to do with you. But anyway, this was back when I was the Rav in the shul in Richmond. But I remember Jay Ibsen, he had a bullhorn, and he said, I want to invite you inside here to see how God saved my life during the Holocaust. I was very proud of that was how he approached it. He didn't say, oh, you're a bigot, oh, you're disgusting, oh, you're this, oh, you're that. Now, people ask, so how come I'm apologizing for a missionary, for Matt Kelly, and I'm calling my fellow Jews bigots? Well, I feel as Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lezeh. It's my job as a Jew and as a rabbi to say Musar against if one of my co-religionists who's claiming to represent my religion is doing something wrong and is making Chil Hashem. So I understand that you believe that about me. You think I'm making Chil Hashem and you're rebuking me, and I think you're making Chil Hashem. I'm rebuking you. But I hope and pray. I know I'm doing it because I love whoever is the people I know. I know Reb Ruvain Zol Gesundsein. Taka, love him. We were chavrusas. We used to learn Hasidus on the phone every week, and I know he means l'shem shemayim. And then even whatever it is, Yaron Ruvain and Yossi Mizrahi and all these Mishugoyim, sof kol sof, they're from Jews, even if they're doing something wrong, they're making Chil Hashem, and even one of my Rebbeim said they're dangerous. It's very dangerous. One of my Rebbeim told me they're very dangerous. Sof kol sof, there's a mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael that for sure applies l'chulei alma to kamecha b'terem mitzvahs. That when you're dealing with the Shomer Torah mitzvahs, everyone agrees that there's a chiyuv of Ahavas Yisrael. So I have to love them. Meaning when you come to somebody who's not from, there's a question of whether or not there's a mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael, and whether or not they're part of Klal Yisrael. And certainly if someone is really apikoros, and certainly if somebody is a Sonei Adas, if someone is an enemy of Judaism, even if they just happen, we're not racists that say that someone just happened to be born to a Jewish mother, we have to love them for that reason. No. But a lot of people who are not as observant as we are good, believing Jews. That's another point of it. Meaning, there are people, they drive to shul on Shabbos, but they make kiddush or they daven or whatever it is, and even if they're chayav misa, which they are, for driving to shul on Shabbos, we're not stoning them. We're loving them, and they are part of Klal Yisrael. Certainly Chacham Avadia said that someone says Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadosh Shabbos is lehalocha is a Shomer Shabbos, but that's not really the subject. I'm all over the place right now. I'm sorry about that. But the point I want to make here is related to some of these things. But sof kol sof, that's why it's important. That's why there's a mitzvah, according to those who give Tamei mitzvahs, of the mitzvah of benching, is for that reason, that we have to, after we eat, we have to remember God. So I was watching, I don't know why I'm watching it, but that channel that they made the silly video making fun of me, which I deserve to be made fun of. I'm nobody. I'm just a guy making YouTube videos in my car. So you want to make fun of me? Gesundheit hate. Go ahead, make fun of me. But there's a violating man, Yonatan Alevi, and he's a Rav out in California. Titof Esach for Yiddishkeit, like we say, he's involved in Kiruv Rechokim, and he means L'Shem Shemayim, and we are both students, in a certain sense, of a certain Rav. I don't want to mention his name, because the same Shagoyim are going to start harassing him, so I'm going to leave it alone. And he keeps a low profile, a big Talmid Chacham, a student of Chacham Avadia, a Breslover Chassid, who I really think is one of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, and really one of the Gedolei Ador. If not really, in a certain sense, I feel this particular rabbi who maintains a low profile, he was a Rav in different shuls over the years, I really hold to be a Gedolei Ador. A rabbi who lives in Far Rockaway. People don't really know who he is. Some people know. The people who know him know his godless, know his greatness. Even the people who were upset at certain things that he had to do for Parnas or whatever it is, they recognize that he knows what he's talking about, and you can't upschlug him. So anyway, so I never met Rabbi Halevi. I met this other rabbi who's also a Levi, but that we're not going to mention his name, because again, I don't want people to harass him. But Rabbi Halevi, we're both big admirers of this certain rabbi who's a Breslover Chassid and a student of Chacham Avadia and a student of Rabbi Yitzchak Abadi and other Gedolim, and himself a Yid who's Kulei Torah, someone who learns all day and really knows what he's talking about. So anyway, this rabbi is encouraged by Rabbi Yitzchak Abadi to say that's what I'm talking about here. They made a video making fun of Rabbi Halevi, who's a Voiler Yid, and he speaks Yiddish. He knows what I mean, a Voiler Yid. Even though he's Sephardi, he speaks Yiddish too. So his wife is a Chassidish from Borough Park, Stoliner Chassidista. But Rabbi Levi is a Voile Yid, a Talmud Chacham, and an Ehrlicher, and he made some videos where he talks about his shitas and being makar of people and how to be makar of people, and these guys who make these videos anonymously don't like it. All right, that's their business. It's a free country. So anyway, he mentioned there one of the things that they were upset about that he made in the video was that he encourages people to recite the Birkat Hamazon HaKotzer. And I don't know if he got this from our shared Rebbe or from another Rebbe of his. I know he's also a student of Rav Yehuda Peretz, who's a big Rosh Yeshiva, and I know Rabbi Bar Tzadok is also a student of his. And so